Welcome back. Last lesson, we built the basic 3-column layout for our new section. Now we'll add the content, which all needs to be centered inside the column. Centering all the content inside columns is really easy, but there is a quirk of CSS and Flex that you need to be aware of that often trips people up. Let's add some content. I'll select the first column to add elements directly inside it. Now I could use an icon box element for this. That's just like the Elementor icon box widget, and it has an icon, heading, and text built in. Totally fine. But here I'm going to add the icon, the heading, and the text elements in separately, just so that I can more easily teach you how to bulk center a load of elements at once. Either way is good though in practice. First, let's add a heading. Overwrite the text. I'm going to leave these as H3 for this lesson because you could argue that these headings here could all be subheadings of the H2 we have above. Not entirely incorrect, I don't think. However, you might argue that maybe they should really be H2. Maybe, yes. But as you can see, our default H2 typography is too big for this part of the design. What to do? Well, one solution could be to just manually override the font size on each of these particular headings. That would mean clicking each heading in turn, go to Style and Typography, and then make the text smaller there. That would be a kind of hard-coded style on these headings only. I don't really like doing that. We may later have more H2s on the site like this that we want to look smaller, like an H3, and I would want the style of those to be globally editable. So for this lesson, I'm just going to set these as H3. You know, it's not technically wrong. We haven't skipped a heading level like going from H2 straight to H4 or anything. But just know, later on, we will be solving this issue with classes. You'll be able to easily have H2s on the page, but display them at the H3 size without having to manually add styles on individual headings that you can't control globally. As I say, that's all later. Okay, now a rich text element. I'm going to use the Elements panel keyboard shortcut, that's Control or Command E. Filter by the word text, Tab key to the rich text element, and hit return. Click to select the element to edit it. I'll overwrite the text. Let's add an icon above these as well. So I'll come up to the plus icon this time, just to keep things varied. Here's the icon element. I'm going to drag it into place. Make sure that it's selected to edit. First job, choose an icon. You get a choice of icon sets, or you can even use your own SVG icons. I'm going to go with Font Awesome Solid. And then I'll search hands. I want this one here. The size, let's try 2 rem. It needs to be a little bigger. Watch this. I'll hold my Shift key and then use my up arrow to go up in 0.5s. Yeah, 2.5 rem looks great to me. Holding down Shift and then using your up and down arrows is a great way to go up or down in increments of 0.5. And let's add some space below it. That's in the layout spacing controls. Space outside something is margin. That's what we want. So let's try 1 rem, margin bottom. Perfect. Looking at this H3 now, you know, I think I generally like H3s to have a smaller margin bottom than we previously set in theme style. Let's just tweak that now. Into theme style, into typography, and I'll just change the H3 margin bottom to 0.5 rem instead. Yeah, I like that better for sure. I just want to show you that you can tweak your theme style settings at any time. Before we add content for the other 3 columns, let's center this content. I don't want it all left aligned. We could center each element individually. So I could click on the icon and then in style and individual element centering settings or in layout and down to flex. It's the align self option here. Basically, this allows you to align an individual element on its own without setting the flex styles on the direct parent, as you've seen so far. Now that's okay, but it is just much more efficient in so many ways to align everything in the column all at once. So I'm going to reset this. Let's think about this. Let's go and have a look in the structure panel. So we want to align the icon, the heading, and the text element center in one go. And to affect these child elements, well, we need to set the flex align on their direct parent. In this case, it's the block or the column. Those elements are in a vertical direction by default. As you can see on the canvas, they're stacked on top of each other. And so that means that the main axis is also vertical, which means the cross axis must be the opposite, horizontal. So we want this one, align center. And that should have aligned all three child elements center. The icon is, why not the heading or text? Well, here's the gotcha I mentioned at the start. Center aligning with Flex does align the elements themselves center. So the green boxes that you can see around the heading and text elements here are centered in the column. But you can't actually tell because those elements are the full width of the column. So to align the actual text center, you have to also set the text typography to align center as well. It's just the way it is. So still, we'll make sure that we're editing the column into Style, down into Typography, and set Text Align also to center. So again, just to recap, to fully center elements, especially ones with text in them, you first, in the Content tab, have to align everything in the column on the cross axis to center. And then in Typography, again on the whole column, set Text Align Center as well. This again will later be a fantastic use for classes, which will handle the whole thing for us automatically, with no fuss or having to remember anything. But for now, to finish off, I'm going to just duplicate the entire first column twice. And then I'll just delete the original two columns. Now I'll swap out the icons and text in the other two columns, but I'm going to fast forward me doing that to keep the lesson moving. I'll drop the names of the icons that I used and the text copy below the video for you to follow along. Now let's wrap up by popping the background color on the section. So I'll select the section into Style and Background. Set the background color to our secondary yellow color. Okay, let's preview. See this on a wider page. Looks good. Quick check on tablet. Looks good too. I'll also set this to 800 pixel width just to see what it looks like on a smaller tablet screen. Yep, that's fine. Mobile landscape. Okay, these are now stacked vertically because there's not enough room for them side by side, and that's fine. But I would actually like a bit more of a gap between each of these blocks vertically. How do I do that? Well, remember row gap? The blocks have column gap set on them, yeah, but not row gap. Let's add that now. And remember that our default left and right container padding on mobile is 2rem, so let's also set the row gap as 2rem as well. That's better. Also, remember, we are going to automate these column gaps and row gap settings much easier with classes later on. We're just doing it more manually for now. And that's it. Your task now is to add the content, as I did, and center it in each column. Remember to not only set Flex Align to center, but also the Typography Text Align as well. Again, we'll make that much easier and quicker with classes later on as well. And then finally, don't forget to edit responsive, adding some row gap for mobile screens. Next, let's again create another new layout, this time with columns of varying widths. See you there shortly.